Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, we're really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So, our podcast is for people that want to learn something new or make themselves a little bit better every day. And today we have just a cool guy all around joining us. His name is Richard Blank. He is the owner and CEO of a call center company in Costa Rica. He moved to Costa Rica via Philadelphia through the University of Arizona, then to Costa Rica. He's got a great story about kind of overcoming and pushing back against expectations and building the life that he wanted for himself and his loved ones, in spite of expectations that really may have thought of had different plans for him than the way things turned out for him. Super successful. You will get a lot out of this conversation. His kind of overwhelming joy and overwhelming gratitude and positive outlook. There's a lot to be learned here. So without further ado, let's just bring Richard on. Richard, welcome to Salty Ginger Talk. We appreciate having you come on.
So happy to be a guest. Can't wait to share ideas and have a good time.
Yeah, for sure. So we got connected with Richard through a website where we let people know about our podcast and asked them if they want to be guests. And Richard was good enough to fill out a form. And let me just read you what he has told us he will talk to us about today. So you can look forward to things like allow me to share advanced telemarketing strategy, conflict management, interpersonal soft skills, customer support, rhetoric, gamification, pinball machines. I bet you guys didn't see that one coming. Employee motivation, phonetic microexpression reading, the pros and cons of AI, and finally, the famous Buffer-Boomerang
Boomerang
technique
technique.
to close sales. So, Richard is lives in Costa Rica by way of Philadelphia, and he has built a crazy awesome business that he's going to talk about on the podcast. And we're going to have him walk us through kind of his journey in life because he's got some inflection points that I think we can all learn a lot from. And then we're going to talk about all that stuff. So buckle in. This one's going to be a good one. Richard, we connected last week or 2 weeks ago. We had a great conversation. He is a great guy, and we're fortunate to have him on. So, Richard, tell us about going from Philadelphia to Arizona to Costa Rica. Give us the broad strokes, and we'll dive into some deeper stuff.
Well, when I grew up and stayed home from school, I was watching Gilligan's Island and I wish I could live there. And so when you get that one in a million opportunity, you take it. You get past your parents' guilt, you put everything aside, you go for it. And so I moved here 25 years ago. I was 27 at the time. And the adventure has not ended. But I tell you what, I was building on momentum. My favorite class in high school was Spanish. I doubled down on it in college, was a Spanish major. And so I was prepared for this. It's one of those things where once they put you out there, if you've done so much dedicated practice, it's just easy for you. And so I knew that the moment that I walked off the plane, that I was going to stay here. And as John Wayne said, I was going to die with my boots on and do whatever it took to be able to have a beautiful life in Costa Rica.
So, did you real? So, I guess two questions here. One, did you start taking Spanish because you loved the language, or did you take it because you thought there would be some utility later in life?
Well, an excellent question, Joe. Well, came from a very generous family. So my parents used to like to travel. And so we would go to Mexico. And when I would come back from those vacations, besides having fun in the sun, probably picked up about 20 vocabulary words and a couple grammar. And so outside of my own bubble, when I would meet a Latino and practice the limited Spanish that I had, I got such positive reinforcement and a goodie bag they used to add to my vocab and balance my vocab. And my grammar. The thing was, though, it was such a positive reinforcement. It wasn't just a pat on the head parlor trick that my parents thought was cute in front of their friends. This was something they didn't understand, but I got it. And so I knew that it's interesting. When you're a child, sometimes you'll break a window to get attention, but it's the bad attention. And I realized it's not funny or cute when you keep being the bad kid. And so if I found something where people would see it as either education or something that was positive and non-threatening, maybe I'll latch onto that, like sports or arts or something in that sense. But The language thing was important for me, Joe, because most people were going to college and they had a plan. They were following family footsteps or going to medical, law school. They're going to be engineers. I had no clue. Plus, I didn't have the grades for that. And so my Spanish teacher said, "Listen, Richie, you love this thing. You're kind of good at it. And if anything and nothing, the fact that you do above and beyond outside the classroom, besides your homework, you tell them you read a book, you watched a movie, you spoke to someone for a couple hours. I didn't ask you to do that. Obviously, you love it, and it's sticking. It's not the kind of thing you take a test and forget." And so she said, "Go for it. And I'll write you a college recommendation letter." And I took that momentum and I got into Arizona. If I didn't get those recommendation letters from the late principal Norman Schmidt of the proud Abington High School and my Spanish teacher Esperanza Galshak, there's no way I would have gotten into Arizona. And so I look at ways to pay it forward. Today, I do a second language scholarship for a graduating senior from my alma mater. Why? Because there was a kid just like me that learned a second language. Obviously, he loves it. And so it's my pleasure to pay for their books. I love to do that and pay it forward. So I was on a hero's journey. I needed to sharpen some swords and prepare myself for a different type of destiny, one that your parents couldn't prepare you for, and you couldn't compare notes with your buddies. Was I the eccentric one? No, I was just the dreamer, but I followed through on it. That's the difference between most people that just paint castles in the sky and those that are willing to lay everything down to see if they can get it. And so it's interesting about life. You don't want to have that sort of regret. I was willing to get knocked out in the first, but at least walking in the ring compared to never doing it at all. Just so happens I did the distance just like Chuck Wepner did against Ali. So call me Rocky. And
I love it.
I'm here today. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. So just to recap there. So this is a theme we talk about constantly on our podcast. So Richard just said some really important things. One, he didn't follow the path that others were following or told him they thought he should follow, right? So he didn't know what he wanted to do, but he didn't do nothing either, right? He found something and he went after it. And it's
Yeah.
led to this crazy, awesome life that he's going to talk to us about. But it's important to note this was not, he didn't set out from 18 and have a clear path. I'm going to do this. But what he did not do is sit around. He took action and he took control of his situation. And I think it's always important when we have all these awesome, successful people come on. It's easy to sit here and look at him now after all the wars that he's fought and all the things that he's done to get to where he's at. He was once an 18-year-old aimless guy who had to get a letter from his principal to get into college. And so it's important to notice that he took his shots. He did not sit on his laurels. And I love the Philly guy referencing Chuck Wepner. For those that don't know, the movie Rocky was absolutely based on the life of Chuck Wepner, who fought Muhammad Ali right here in Cleveland, Ohio, where I am from, at the Richfield Coliseum, and went 14 rounds with Muhammad Ali. So a Philly guy
man, Joe.
referencing Chuck Wepner and Rocky, money.
You're the
Chef's
big
kiss. I
team
love it.
leader. Hey, but guess what? You think it wasn't about the principal or the teacher. It was about convincing my parents.
Yeah.
Imagine sitting down with Mr. and Mrs. Blank and telling them that I'm not going to go to Harvard Law like grandpa, Columbia Business like my pops, or Washington and Lee University like my older brother. I didn't have the grades or the maturity. Like, you got to be kidding me.
Mm.
And so my argument to them was, think of great grandpa that came from Eastern Europe, moved to the United States at the turn of the 20th. He didn't speak English. They went to New York. They were in the garment industry, and we made our money during the Depression. So don't you dare imagine if they didn't move and take that chance in their early 20s. And so it's in our blood. And how could you ever extinguish a spark of somebody? I was living a romantic sort of feel. I was like, guys, I'm studying a language. Where could it take me? I don't know. But this is what I do know. I'll be the only one out of my friends can do it. I can put Se habla español on a business card. And every single time I've met somebody that speaks Spanish, I've been embraced. So I think I found the magic dust in this world to make my life a little bit easier. And so they said, okay, well, if we're going to send you to college, you better be serious about this. I'm like, okay. So I had to. This is the kind of thing you can't spin. You can't just repeat the same 50 words over and over again. You're going to get cut. You had to know your subjunctive tense and your and you're preterite and imperfect, conditional, future tense. It's enough to make you throw up. But I tell you what, after 6 months of intensive study, when you have a grammar base, the rest is vocabulary. And then it's easy, like the gym, it doesn't hurt anymore. And so I realized once you got past that point, like in that, once you get past the waves, you're in the high seas, you can make it. And so I just needed to get past those waves and the breaks and the coral reefs. And once I could do, then the world was my oyster. I could sail this world with this language. And I did so.
So it's funny. We didn't rehearse this at all, by the way, but I actually did one of my podcast episodes called Getting Over the Reef, and it's based on Tom Hanks in Castaway. And
Yeah.
he's stuck on the island, right? He can't get past the reef. He knows if he can get past the reef and out in the open ocean, he's got a chance of being saved. So he puts together a plan and he finally makes it past the reef, and that's what gets him rescued. So it's so awesome that you use that same analogy because, like, it fits. It's just the truth. You got to get through the hard part. And if you can fight through the hard part, there's easier times ahead if you have the backbone to weather the storm and to get there. So
Be worthy.
yeah,
100%.
that's exactly right. So you get to Costa Rica. Did you what was your plan setting out? Did you know you were going to stay in Costa Rica forever? Did you go for a job? How did it start?
60 days. My
You
cousin just said, why don't you come down and teach English at our buddy's call center? I mean, take a break. You're sending out your resume via fax machine in the summer of 2000. That broadcast faxing. Come on, man. That's terrible. Trying to get a job in Tempe so I can sit in traffic all day. And so I came down here to work at my friend's center who was doing customer support for his company in the United States. And I never saw such a thing. The average age was 24 years old. I was 27. So it's all young kids and they're all beautiful and bilingual and intelligent and conversing on the phone and converting calls. And I walked into, it's almost like out of the movies and you saw it. Now, I understand that I wasn't aware of what a predictive dialer was, a CRM, headsets, or any sort of operations in a call center. That's technical. You can learn that. But the one thing that I saw very bright and vividly was the art of speech and the conversing over the phone. I mean, we've all made and received calls and spoke on the phone, but not like this. Not where it's a controlled environment and you're doing 300 to 400 phone calls a day. And so I was watching it, some extremely polished professionals that were really just extending their rhetoric. And I saw that as an underhand pitch with a wiffle ball with a big red Fred Flintstone bat. You can't miss it. You're cranking them over your neighbor's house. Damn it. I saw this thing and I go, man, it's like Billy Madison playing, dodgeball with third graders. Like, this is easy for me. A, it's my native tongue. B, I'm a speaker just like you, Joe. And we're going to get paid for this. And I get to surround myself with extremely cute girls and be the only gringo. Thank you. Let's do this. And so I stayed and I learned the business from the inside out. It's very interesting, retention and customer support. And when positive escalations are made to supervisors, retaining clients, taking really good notes. And so I saw that companies were lacking in this sort of superior service that can get more business from people. It was the old school way. Like the five and dime guy that knows your name. And so after the 2 months, I came to my friend and I said, Joey, I got to ask you a question. He goes, yeah. I go, may I stay? And he goes, I was going to ask you the same thing. Now, between me and you and your audience, you don't really want to see a grown man cry. That was one of the days I had tears down my face. And I said, I cannot believe I got past the reef. I did it. I found my new home. And then from there, I expanded. I learned that business like you had no idea. And so when it was my time at 35 years old to throw my hat in the ring, I was ready. And so I knew everything from the inside out. I just, once again, just didn't have the experience as that C-level executive, but that's just contracts. You can lose contracts and you can be irresponsible with payroll. The people that really hold companies together are the meat, the nuts and the bolts, especially ones that have made these calls, the wheelhouse. Just don't write checks. I can walk the roads, take a call anytime in any place, and these people understand that this is my expertise. And when I meet with them, I'm only doing to enriquecer. I will improve on their skills because I'm just paying it forward from my own experience in the 10,000s of phone calls I've studied. And so I found my space. Now, mind you, Hollywood makes call centers look terrible. Wolf of Wall Street, Boiler Room, Glengarry, Glen Ross, you name it. But there are a lot of people out there that earn a wonderful living working for reputable companies that don't sling stock or do sweepstakes scams, that can retain a client, get upsells, get referrals, really build a beautiful book of business and retain those clients and do it the old fashioned way. Because today, most people, Joe, are doing omni-channel non-voice. It's text, emails, and that sort of support. And to me, I think it's latent, it's impersonal. AI will gather and will make things easier, but they will never replace empathy.
Yep.
And so when it comes to putting your credit card down or speaking to an attorney or a doctor or just someone that needs to reassure you that you're making the right decision, I guarantee people will press zero and want to speak to that frontline concierge call center executive that will hold their hand and walk them through the process.
So at 35, did you take over the company you were working at, or did you start your own company? I believe you started your own company, right?
Had to start my own.
Yeah.
That's why you have the best podcast. You asked a really good question. So I'm sitting there right in between jobs, and I had a little bit of cash saved. So I put up a website October 4th of 2007, and February 6th of 2008, I landed my first account. It was for one seat for 1 week, 50 hours. I wouldn't accept that now, but I did then. And so what could you do? I don't have where I am today, sitting on a building of, a couple thousand square feet. And so I needed to rent a turnkey station at a blended call center, which is like an internet cafe. It wasn't glamorous, but I could rent a station ready to go where I could pay the overhead, the salary, the benefits, and make a margin. It's just not my own space, but that's fine. I was there for 2 years and I could scale. And then when I had the clients and the money, then I started renting space and I was there for 6 years. And so in my industry, which is very interesting, there is a rotation. So a lot of companies would go out of business. Now, there's an 80% import tax here on electronics. I'm not paying that, even if I'm in a free trade zone. But I tell you what, if I can buy Dell computers for pennies on a dollar that are 3 months old from a company that went out of business and chairs that are still in the wrapper, I'll take it.
Yeah, right.
And so I was able to scale accordingly, row by row, station by station, and I never overextended myself, and I could build out the server room, and that was beautiful. And then I decided to purchase a property right by the universities and the third largest hospital. We're in an area called Barrio Aranjuez, which is a very nice section of downtown. So most people can get here, with the bus or the train and stuff. And so it's a good central location. And we built out the building, made it, upgraded it and up to speed for 300 people. That doesn't matter now because everyone's working from home. Thank God I didn't do it for 3,000 people. I made it just big enough. And it's like the game of life, Joe. We started with the tent, and now we're in the mansion. And if you think that this thing I wish it could have happened in a year, but unfortunately, I'm the tortoise, not the hare. But the tortoise never falls into holes or breaks a leg or puffs out, gasses out when they're running. Grandma told me, if you can't pay for it in cash, you're just not doing it, Richard. Use credit cards just to make reservations, but you never overextend yourself. You never take on bad partners. You take loans from the bank where they can take things away from you. She goes, work at your pace. And if you pace, you distance. You don't burn out. And who needs a penthouse suite when it's not necessary? There's other ways to spend that money. And so I always felt that bells and whistles go so far. A lot of people would rather work with you for dignity. It's kind of like Rocky 3. He lost against Clubber Lang in that fancy gym, and he went to the gym with Apollo Creed that had the leaking pipes and sweat and stuff. And that's where you get
Sprints
the
on the
eye of the
beach,
tiger.
baby. Sprints on the beach.
all day long. I trained in so many gyms since I was 17, but the best gym ever was Ed's gym on the top of Foxcroft Pavilion in Jenkintown. These were guys who were getting off of construction sites. Man, there were posters of Corey Everson and Heather Thomas on the wall, and they're listening to YSP. These are like men's men. And if you don't know how to put your weights away and take your turns, they're going to kick you out of there. But you learn and you work out with people that took it seriously. It just wasn't, glamour or just goofing around. These are people that had to work out and go home and wake up the next day to hit the construction site. And so I guess if my first impression of a gym, that was the best. Instead of Bally's Holiday Spa in Willow Grove, you got to be kidding me. I'm Ed's gym, man. And that's where it was at. And so I do understand that sometimes when you get raw and you get down and dirty, then you make yourself vulnerable. You take away all the stupid distractions, which you think will add to it. Actually, no, that puts more weight on you. And so I think you and I are smart enough to decide what's the most important things to put in our backpacks.
Yeah. So so much good stuff in here. I want to recap for the audience real quick. So Richard's from a family that has a lot of folks that have gone through Ivy League educations. He says it's not for me. He pushes back and says, I'm going to go do this. Goes to Arizona, follows his passion for a language, gets out of Arizona. He's looking for a job, hasn't found one, gets a call that says, hey, come to Costa Rica. I know you've never, ever been here before, but why don't you come down here and do some training? Why not? He takes his shot. He's not afraid. He takes action. That turns into working at a company until he's 35, finds himself again at a transition point and says, you know what? Why not take my shot right now? I've got a little bit of cash saved. I'm going to take my own shot, grows it from a fucking shared internet cafe type space to where he's at now. My whole
Yeah.
my whole point of all this, guys, is what's the one thing he's always doing? He's always taking action. He's always trying to improve. He's always looking to get a little bit better. It's not an accident that he got to where he's at. So I just when you talk through that story, man, it just makes the hairs on my arm stand up. It gives me the goosebumps because I love it when people have persevered and have built something meaningful for themselves. And I would guarantee you that if you went back to 17-year-old Richard Blank and said, hey, by the way, you're going to be a super successful owner of a call center business in Costa Rica later in life, he'd have been like, whatever, bud, get out of here. That's never going to happen. Like this wasn't a plan, but you kept taking action, kept putting yourself in situations where you could learn and grow and be successful. And man, it's just impressive. I just love hearing the story. I absolutely love it.
Thanks, man. I also have to show your audience what's in the kitchen. I didn't do it all on my own. I don't wear all the hats. I'm a guest in this country. And if I'm starting a business, I might need a chief technical officer. How about hiring a human resources director? I might need a local attorney as well, and accountant. And so to think that I was doing all of that like an octopus is foolish. I know what my strengths are and I know what I needed. And so I was able to expand by finding the right people. And probably the most important person that I needed was my face man. Because listen, if the salty ginger and Gringo Ricardo are out on the street trying to buy some stuff, they're going to charge us double. I mean, look at us. We call us blancos. We're white and we're also the targets. And so,
Yeah, right.
doble, triple. Yeah, that's not right. And so I will send out somebody that's local and I'd get the real good price. I'm not saying I'm taking advantage. No, I'm doing fair trade. Let's just look at it as it is. If I could use somebody locally to assist. And so that made life much more easier and a better transition where I wasn't getting myself in situations where I needed to get out of it. And also, I tell you what, when you are an expat and you're living in another country, you really should respect their culture and their laws here. Because I've seen a lot of people when they're on vacation, they think that it's a free for all. This is not Vegas. I mean, yeah, it's a great place to be, and there's a lot of fun stuff, but mind you, I mean, be respectful. It's an extremely strict Catholic country. These are very nice young ladies here. And so I realize that my time here has been better than others because of the certain decisions I've made. I've been with my wife for 25 years. I'm married a Costa Rican. I'm a good boy. I've had fun, but it's not the sort of fun that makes you regret things or get you to where you don't want to come back or have a bad experience. And so I've seen a lot of people come and go and start businesses, but they moved too fast, or they didn't understand the language or take the time to do it. So they had a lot of rotation of staff, or they never got the umph that you could have gotten out of somebody if you knew how to relate to them properly. And so maybe, Joe, a lot of it's being humble, okay, and showing some gratitude for even the smallest of things. And I think that's the sort of thing that gave me the foundation to be able to last this long.
Oh, sorry, my dog is hey, stop. Stop. That is the mascot that's actually on the logo is my dog.
Well, pick him up. Let me see him.
Hey,
is he heavy? Let me see the puppy.
No, she's small. Come here.
And what's her name?
Maggie. She's an Irish Terrier.
Oh, she's beautiful. How old is your puppy?
2.5. She's pretty young. Okay, no more barking.
And she made her cameo. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't edit this out.
So you had talked about all of the help and folks that have helped you get to where you're at. That takes leadership. You've also talked about training people to work in your business. I'd love to just explore that some more because I know one of the reasons you're certain you've been successful is because you teach people how to do the work properly, how to interact with people properly. One, how did you learn that? And two, how do you impart that wisdom to others to help them be successful?
Excellent. In our industry, we have quality control departments. We grade calls with key performance indicators, things you need to ask and do to make the call qualified. That's what I pay you to do. What I want is the soft skills. I want to know how many times you said salty ginger, talked about Maggie the poppies. You got extra points on that one. And just to talk about assistance James and things like that. It's very important that you're engaged, that you're in the now, that you catch it. Because if not, it's just going to be another bad taste in your mouth phone call that people are receiving. And so I have a luxury trade. I'm very fortunate that I get to work with languages and say that I'm a linguist and a teacher. That's great. I am so lucky. And our medium, this telecommunications, it's something that we might say we're used to it, but 300 years ago, we didn't do it. The stenograph was 1865. It's the first time we're actually able to listen to our own voices. So our body is not used to that. Mirrors, we are. Our reflection, fine, but not our voice. And so it's something we're still working on. And so for me, I think phonetics is beautiful. I know that a lot of people like to do micro expression reading, and we can talk about that face to face and that sort of tell signs. But to me, my good friend, the purest form of communication is the sound. It's the sight unseen because people can manipulate congruence. They can always do red herrings and fake you out with their body language and stuff. And they could smile when they say, I want to kill you, and frown when they say, I love you. So what do you want to say? But the phonetic, a lot of the times you can't mask certain things. We can discuss certain tell signs and things to enhance their skills. But when they walk into the classroom or even prior to the classroom, let's talk about how we select the agents that come into my center when there's so many to choose from. Listen, you can be bilingual, which bears the mark of higher education. I got you. And when you fill out your resume, you put in all the bells and whistles, whatever. Why don't you do me a favor? Turn the paper over, Joe, and why don't you give me a couple paragraphs of a coming of age moment? Come on, man. Tell me a time you beat up a bully or saved a kitten. Why? Because when you're on the salty ginger and you need to pass that test, you might be asked a zig and a zag question. And are you capable of loosey-goosey to get through it? Because there's no straight lines in nature. And so if somebody can't think on their feet, if they can't give me any sort of depth, I'm not saying you're not qualified to be a call center agent. You're not qualified to be with me and Joe. It's just how it is. Because I like people that can be spontaneous. Why? Because they're confident enough in their own thought process and their ethics to be able to speak what comes out. They're not just using profanity or vulgar thoughts or something so obscure you have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And so they pass that test. And then they walk into the call center. I collect pinball machines, air hockey tables, and stuff. So I got an excellent arcade here. It's a happy medium. It's like recess. So they see we play. So prior to even the first class, we're in the game room playing pinball and Pac-Man. Then they go into the training room. And I'm not tooting my own horn or jactándome, which is boasting, but I'll ask them a question, and I probably get 20% that say yes. I go, how many CEOs of call centers have actually introduced themselves and did some training with you? As I said, 2 out of 10. So I said, great. When you are a boss, are you going to work with your people? And 100% raised their hand. And so
Mm.
I've, in a certain way, off the bat, established something. And the second thing I says, I'm not going to judge you on what happened to this last agent that's not here anymore. Please don't judge me on what happened with your last supervisor or boss. And so I'm trying to establish something that's neutral. Yes, I'm an authority figure, but I'm not starting off playing that game. Don't be afraid of me, damn it. Because if you are, I'll never be able to connect with you. I don't want to do
Right.
that stupid stuff. So then I'll start talking stories about Philly and learning Spanish and how I got there. So they see the hero's journey and someone I'm just not the average guy. I'm here for a reason. Okay. And then we talk about the psychology of making phone calls, about fear, which is morbid anticipations. And then I talk about romantic deaths and jumping clouds, where if you have a beautiful introduction for at least 30 seconds and you can do that 200 times a day, that's a wonderful way to touch 200 people. Say the name of the company, the Salty Ginger. How are you today, Joe? I mean, if you hang up on me, at least I said that. At least I had a speaking part in the play before you hung up on me.
Right.
I can still be in SAG. But the point of the matter is that I've noticed patterns, and I know how to prolong conversations by checkpoints. And I think what I would do with these agents is enhance their self-confidence and self-reliance to at least be speakers and listeners. And so, for an example, we will talk about the thesaurus, and I will ask them to remove negative vocabulary. I understand you use the word help. And in fact, you mentioned earlier people that helped me along the way, and that's cool. But I would prefer to use words like assist, guide, or lend a hand, depending on the stage of the relationship. We know that in rhetoric, it's strategy and diplomacy. And so I'm thinking, why don't we just readjust the tone? It's the same message, different delivery. I don't need help. Let's use assist, guide, and my man Joe's lending a hand. And then a second thing that I've taught them, which once again adjusts tone. There are times Maggie's barking, bad cell connection, something's going on. And so instead of saying excuse me or I'm sorry, which a lot of people fall into, those are hedgings, and we don't like that hedging. We prefer to fall on the sword and sacrifice pawns. And so I'll say, hey, Joe, for my clarification, was it ABC or 1, 2, 3? And you will know through my passive aggressive, non threatening nature that Maggie's barking. You got to put her outside. And so these are certain, and then we'll talk about I love dogs, and I'll ask the name. And then when the doggy's outside, you come back and the call gets readjusted again. I've mentioned using the military alphabet with individuals because people have exotic names, emails bounce back, and a lot of people have served in the military. It's a wonderful way to anchor with individuals. And so I'm not teaching them $1 million tricks. A lot of it is just common courtesy, common sense, and just proper social grace. The old school ways, the way we spoke in front of our grandparents. And so you take turns and you have checkpoints. And so by doing so, they breathe better. They're in the now. They're slicing away. They might not convert a call, but I'd rather have a solid 3 minutes than a shaky 9. It makes no sense to me. And so when they see this, they realize that they are expanding on something that will, if you want to say make them more money, fine, they're more marketable. But I tell you what, these are the sort of things, Joe, that will save a marriage, a Thanksgiving dinner, or maybe give you the intelligence, the smarts to sleep on it, to think about it, to write the draft and not send it. Because if you have the luxury of time, okay, and it's that important for you, I would ask for at least a chance to ponder before I have to make that decision, because you might lose a friend over it. Hmm? And then maybe the following day I could call and go, Joe, I'm so sorry for yesterday. I know I was yelling, I was being an idiot. You're like, Richie, it's all right, man. I'm like, cool, because I could have said something the day prior where we never talk again. And so, is it maturity? Yes. Is it impulse control? Yes. And I got to teach these young kids sometimes not to grow up, but I can give them a little more balance and a touch more focus in the moment so they can move forward in this communication, which most people are lacking these days. And so when they see this, my friend, they realize it's a sincere effort where I am trying to pay this forward. Now, some people don't like that attention. They'd rather be lost amongst thousands than just a number, like Pink Floyd The Wall, just be that other brick. But then you have others that say, you know what? I'm going to stand up as the salty ginger, and I want that nickname, and I want Richard to listen to my calls. And if he says stop using help and stop saying and okay, stop hedging, come on, buddy. I know that what he's doing is making me stronger, like a squire to a knight. And that's my goal here today, my man, is to pass that sort of information forward, just to make people a little more stable.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And that, look, this is why we look for people like Richard to come on to the podcast, because you can listen to me run my mouth all day long and I've got my ideas and et cetera, et cetera. But there is no substitute for real world experience from people that have done the work, that have built the things, that have experienced failures and or setbacks and or opportunities, whatever your vernacular is. Life's going to kick you in the teeth every once in a while. Life's going to give you choices every once in a while. What we know for sure is people that take action wind up in better spots than people that don't. And Richard's like a perfect testament to that. So he's developed all of these skills over a long career. I love that you focus on things like the word help. That's a great way. I do similar things in different arenas. So in sales, I always tell people, don't call it a contract because it scares people. It makes them think of legalese. Say you're going
Mm,
to send over the agreement. It's the
mm,
same thing, but don't say
yes.
contract. I also say learn how to say no without saying no. There's lots of ways to say no without using the word no, and it leaves the conversation open for additional potential opportunities. So, how do I say no without saying no? I don't think I can make that work. I don't think my boss will sign off on that. I don't think that will fit in our budget. Those are all ways to say no without saying the word no. But they're all kind of open ended statements. So it leaves problem solving on the table. So you're not slamming the door, you're simply redirecting the conversation, right? I mean, that's where the magic happens, is when you can engage with people and develop relationships where both of you can get something out of the relationship as you move it forward. And that's what Richard's talking about in terms of who he's training and what he's trying to impart to his people, is you can further your stage in life, not just professionally, but personally. He used the examples of save the Thanksgiving dinner, save a marriage. Those things are true. I've been married to my wife. It's actually our 33-year anniversary as a couple this
Nice.
weekend. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's not an accident. It's not an accident that we're still together after 33 years. It takes both people wanting to engage and communicate and keep moving forward together to make that work. And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens by action. It happens by uh, empathy. It happens by compassion, and it happens by caring more about others than you do yourself. And you've talked a lot about paying it forward on this
Yeah.
in our conversation, right? So very similar themes that we talk about a lot on the podcast, and I love the way you went through all of those things. I can vouch, by the way, for Richard's play hard statement, because he sent me a couple of videos that I watched. So he engaged with a former member of In Excess to make a video, and he's got a promotional video for his business that shows the facility they're in now. Lots of pinball machines, lots of air hockey, lots of video games. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about your passion for the old school, because I'm old school too. I put plenty of quarters into an asteroid or a Pac-Man machine in my day. So let's talk a little bit about where that started.
When we grew up in the 70s and 80s, the arcades were the place. to be. What beautiful cabinets and marquees and the artwork. You put your quarter up, you gotta wait your line for play some Pac-Man. The pinball machine. Ooh, that pinball machine. If you're lucky, you can play it for a quarter. It's usually 50 cents. We never practiced it. That 50 cents went like that, especially when the ball started going down the middle. You're like, does this machine hate me? And I used to love to watch it. It was so expensive to play. But I knew that I always wanted one. And so, I mean, you were mentioning asteroids. I can play that for an hour on
Mm.
a with a quarter. But when I came down here in 2000, most of these arcades were going out of business. And you would go on Craigslist or Facebook, and people are just giving them away. And so you drive a couple hours, you pick them up for a couple $100, bring them back. Sure, they're 30 years old, 40 years old. So you got to take some stuff out from behind the marquee, and all you do is order the replacement part, the CPUs and different chips, and maybe $300 to $1,000, you replace everything. Next thing you know, that turns on and works. So you're sitting on a machine worth $5,000. And so I had the space. So I was picking up Pac-Man fighting machines, jukeboxes, air hockey tables, and it was great. I had recess here. People were hanging out from other departments, letting off steam, recharging batteries, hanging out with me. Hey, Joe, it's one less cigarette. And these kids that are watching Japanese anime by themselves are in the corner, they're hanging out. And it's a great chance to see someone laughing because you see a different side of them when they laugh. That's natural. But let's get back to this rock video. My favorite band in the world is In Excess. I love In Excess. And so a good friend of mine here has a band called Igni Faroki. He wrote me a song called Shine Like the Sun. It's about me moving to Costa Rica, working at a call center, falling in love with Grace. But we produced it. And then I was watching a podcast one time with Gary Beers talking about his bass guitars that he sells. And he says, yeah, check out my website. So I went there, and one section said, hire Gary. He says, if you have a song, I'll play on it. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I go, I got an angle. I can actually write it with something that qualifies, and you might write me back, and I got something. And so I wrote him. It must have been at least 3 pages about how much I love the band. It changed my life. Summer of '88. And then at the end, he wrote me back once and said, hey, Richard, nice to meet you. Do you want to hire me? I'm like, yes. And so I bought all 4 elements. I wanted him to play bass on the track. I paid for him to play some funky grooves to it. And I also had him, with his own genius, include some synthesizer and some other beats. And then the grand finale, he did a performance video because I had to have proof that he did play it. Anybody could play it. I could have Gary actually laying to the song saying, hey, Richard. And so, and I got that. And it was one of the coolest experiences. You know what's really great, Joe, is the transfer of electromagnetic energy. It's from a hug, a handshake, a smile, or something. And I believe that either machines or people or just general spiritual energy can send and receive. And so you read a letter from grandma, you look at the piece of jewelry your wife gave you. You remember that time your team won the hockey tournament? That stuff keeps giving. And the fact that I watched this video and I listened to the music, and I know that Mr. Beers put in a couple minutes of his life to do something that involved me and wrote me a couple cool emails and stuff. That's was worth every penny. And also contributing to the local arts here, which was very nice in a certain way. Hired a bunch of models and stuff, but it's fun. Why not? I sponsored a couple of years worth of tours, and we go play different places around the country, and I'd be hanging around with the band, and I got to see what it was like. But guess what I saw? That unless you're really like the Rolling Stones are on top and you can earn a living from it, most of these incredible artists have to have full-time jobs, and they're really trying to struggle with their work and rehearsing and touring. And so, unfortunately, it's not as glamorous as most people think it is. It's really the most beautiful part is when they do walk on the stage. But the other part is a really hard grind in order to get that sort of fulfillment in their art. And so they were broke. But it was my pleasure to once again pay for the production. And it wasn't as expensive. We're not in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I can afford it. It's the kind of thing that's like that much. Don't tell them, Joe. Can we do 2? So, and I kept my mouth shut. I made sure that people were paid quickly, and I followed through on my word. And I was actually able to get it together. And so it was one of the most beautiful projects of my entire life.
That's awesome. So a couple of things I just want to point out, and you've probably picked up, but Rich, I try to recap stuff for our audience to make sure they don't miss the connection of what we try to preach on our podcast, which is you have control of your life. You just have to take it. And people that take action wind up in a good spot. People that don't generally don't. But if you listen to Richard's beautiful stories there, they're all about experiences, even the ones that are about things like a pinball machine, an air hockey machine, a video game. It's not the possession itself that has meaning, it's the experience that it enables or the memory that it evokes. And
Yeah.
it's important to understand that. There's nothing wrong with material things. I'm not anti material things. My whole point is you should place the value on the experience and the memories those create, not the things themselves. And you've yet to hear Richard, a very successful guy, talk about things. You've heard him talk about people. You've heard him talk about relationships. You've heard him talk about experiences. You've heard him talk about memories, but you haven't heard him talk about, look at my fancy new car. Look at my beautiful house. Look at my blah, blah, blah. He's talked lovingly about his wife. Not a mistake, not a coincidence that he's been successful because he focuses on the things that are truly important in life. And that fills your tank back up. That gives you the energy to get up and charge into a day instead of waking up and begrudgingly facing a day. There's a very big difference between the approach there. And I just think it's important for all of us to understand that. So really appreciate you sharing all that stuff. And you did a great job kind of recapping it for the group. So I love it. Absolutely
Well,
love it.
Joe, let me at least share one thing that I splurged on. I mean, you're
Yeah.
saying that I'm like the conservative guy doing no, 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 no. Let's all calm down. I was buying, God, maybe 2 dozen custom made spat shoes. I was going through that stage. Don't ask. And then I was getting custom like three-piece suits down here. Why? Because I wanted to look like Remington Steele. And then I took it to the next stage and I bought myself a 1984 300D Mercedes Lang. It's a old like embassy limousine that they used to have, the kind where you'd flip the seats forward. I pulled those seats out and put in a custom made bar. And so what did I do? I wanted to play big shot. I wanted to pick up clients in a three-piece suit and in a limousine at SJO. I wanted to cruise around the country in a limo. So I did that for a couple of years. And was it cool? Yeah, it was cool. We did car shows. I got to restore an old limousine. I said I had one. It wasn't a party limousine like you're seeing like in Vegas and stuff. It was a beautiful, elegant, extended Lang. And so very comfortable ride. It was a diesel. And what's my point being on that? That's the thing where I went over and above. Was that necessary? No. Could I afford it at the time? Yes. But I just didn't have it where I was going to work in it every day. I participated in classic car shows. Her crowning moment was being in the 2019 Carnival. So we were on Main Street and we were there on the news and stuff. And I took the band in it a couple times on tour. And then I sold it and I bought a quadriciclo with it. But my point being is, that was the over the top. That was the look at me. That was the excess. That was the limousine. And was it fun? Yeah, but was it necessary? No, not now. But I'm glad I did it. But yeah, to let you get swept up in things. I was feeling a little too good about myself at that time, and so but yeah, it's interesting. Things have its run. Like you can't eat too much Halloween candy, then you get sick of the chocolate. Do things for a bit, dip toes in, but don't sometimes make it a lifestyle. Just let it be a phase. And if it's a fun phase and you can pass it forward, and then that's fine. Then it doesn't own you. It's just something you spent time with for a while.
Yes, totally agree. And like I said, nothing wrong with material things. Not my point at all. However, if it becomes the focus of your life, I think you got to take a step back and question kind of your mindset and reset yourself a little bit and
Yeah,
refocus on the things that matter. So,
you're
uh,
right.
you know, but I do want to come back to what is it called here? The famous Buffer-Boomerang technique to close sales. You promised to opine on that subject when you came on. And so I'm officially asking you, what is it? How does it work? And what's your experience with it?
Thank you, Joe. Well, I like it because I found it to be most effective. Okay. In a normal conversation, you have three stages: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. If you don't land an intro, the body and conclusion don't even last. So when people are focusing on three steps ahead, that's fine in chess. But if you're not in the now and you don't catch something, you're not going to get that past the pitch. And so why don't we talk about the first 30 seconds of a phone call? And that's where I use my buffer boomerang twice. The structure of a 30-second call is a company name spike, two buffer boomerangs, and a positive escalation before you get transferred. That's the four stages. So if your company picked up, I would say, hey, the salty ginger, how are you today? Now let's say James answers the phone. I'm not going to say, hey, is Joe there? Or good afternoon. I wouldn't do that because James would be like, is this a sales call? How'd you get my number? Take me off the list. Some people even say, F you. Always love those. And that doesn't work. And so I like to use anonymity, not for the whole call. That's shady. But there's nothing wrong where if I get my first impression, why don't I say the name of your company, Joe, better than the person who answers the call? What does that do? Por lo menos, at least I got to say something and I got to say it well. And what's going to happen is I'm going to gauge temperature levels. There's something called a positive or a negative reinforcement. A negative reinforcement is take me off your list, don't call again. Is this a sales call? A positive reinforcement is who's this? Gotcha. I go, hey, James, my name is Richard Blank. And then he's going to say, who is Richard Blank? And then I go, James, that's an excellent question. Richard Blank is the owner of Costa Rica's call center. A buffer boomerang, you will readjust the tone because they still don't know me. What is ABC? Joe, that's an excellent question. ABC is 1, 2, 3. Richard, what's 1, 2, 3? Joe, I'm glad you brought that up. 1, 2, 3 is ABC. Company name spike to snap them out of the trance. Usually they're going to ask your name. You can say, Joe, that's a great question. My name is Richard Blank. Instead of saying, what's your name? Richard Blank. What company? Costa Rica's call center. Come on, man. What are you in third grade? You need to name drop you to anchor. Okay. I'm going to let you know it's a great question, or I'm glad you brought it up. Okay. Just to give me a breath. I'm going to repeat the question so you don't have to do it. And then I'm going to send it back to you in a positive way. So your -2 turns to a -1, 0, and then you start mirror image matching me with a +2 positive. Company name spike. You're going to ask my name. James, that's a great question. My name is Richard Blank. Who is Richard Blank? James, I knew you're going to ask that. Richard Blank, I'm the owner of Costa Rica's call center. And then he's going to say, okay, why are you calling today? I knew you were going to ask that. The reason I'm calling today is I'd like to speak with Joe, the owner of Salty Ginger. Okay, I'm going to transfer you. Hey, James, before you transfer me, I just got to let you know that you were very professional on the phone, and I really appreciate the assistance. I'm going to let Joe know that. Oh, thanks, Rich. I appreciate it. I get transferred. You pick up the phone. Hi, this is Joe. Hey, Joe, I just got to let you know, James is really a great guy. Oh, of course he is. He's my assistant, been with me forever. Who is this? Yeah. Hey, Joe, my name is Richard Blank. Glad you asked that. Well, who is Richard Blank? I knew you were going to ask that, Joe. Richard Blank's the owner of Costa Rica's call center. And so what's happening is that I'm using that positive escalation of James to not company name spike you. I can always do that again and say the name of your company, but I'd rather mention the person that's working with you. Is it compromising ethics, values, or morals? No. Am I lying? No. James was great. I can say the name of your company. Fine. You ask me my name. I'm not going to answer it like I'm in trouble in school. Come on. What's wrong with you? I'm just going to say, that's a great question, Joe. I'm glad you asked. ABC's 1, 2, 3. Now can I speak to James? And so I've seen that. And naturally, that's just my emergency kit, basic 101 for somebody. Naturally, you can increase the vocab and the style and due diligence for certain companies. But my point being is I've seen that regardless of the outcome, the people's reactions have been more positive, where at least I've been able to breathe 4 times before you think it's a sales call, take me off the list or not. At least I'm not getting the don't call or how did you get my name. I can say the name of your company. I can say the name of your assistant twice. Let them know they're great before they kill the call. They could hang up on me. Now, what happens? That's the psychology of the long game. It's a romantic death. Joe, I can jump those clouds. At least I said salty ginger. How you doing, Joe? Click. There we go. In front of all my friends on the floor. I said the name of your company and your name before it got killed. What a beautiful death. And that's what you can at least keep you moving because you're engaged in the moment. Not every company's the salty ginger. Not everyone's named Joe. So at least you can say the name of a company and somebody with such gusto. Those are the trigger words. Those are the words you're supposed to pause before for emphasis. You pause before names and numbers, and you can't say Joe 1,000 times. It's like saying I love you to a woman 1,000 times. It loses its luster. What you need to do is you use the name drop for the makes sense, Joe. Sounds good, right, Joe? Those are the tie downs or the transitional sentences. That's when you use the name for the real shot. But every single sentence, my man, has a personal pronoun. It's either your or our. That's a cousin of the name drop. Still gets your attention. Still going to bring the little sheep coming to you. Not in a straight line, but still coming in. So I can say, hey, anyway, your podcast is great because my thing here, and it's just a great way to do a 1/4 second slide to keep bringing their attention in. That's how you get these 30-second checkpoints on the phone. That's how you pass the introduction to get into the body. And then the conclusion is just wrapping it up. But I tell you what, my man, I give the most points when you say my name in the body of the call, not the intro because you want to know who I am, not in the conclusion because you forgot. But in the middle, you go, hey, Richie, that's a great idea. I'd love to do that. I go, man. And then you wonder why things slow and low down. And you and I aren't running anymore. We're laughing and yucking it up into the end zone. And people were looking at me at the call center left and right like, how do you even know this guy? You remember in The Wolf of Wall Street, when he was making the calls in that shopping center, I think it was about 1:38. He said the guy's name John like 11 times.
The
Of
penny
course I
stock,
would pay for him.
the penny stocks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
That was, what's the coolest thing? If you ever watch that, you should watch it without sound and just watch his body language and the way he's just connecting. It's incredible, the illustrators that he's doing. But then you get someone like me that gets upset. I'm like, why aren't the other people making phone calls? Why is this guy eating at his desk? What's wrong with that guy? Why isn't he leaning forward? They're like, Richard, calm down. I go, no, calm down. I go, you'll wonder why these people aren't closing deals. I go, man, I'm starting yelling at the people. I go, they wouldn't be doing that on my floor. you know? They all should be making calls, not standing there. Oh my God, what are you gonna do? Yeah, Joe, you get me venting.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Look at the passion here, guys. I mean, again, it's not a mistake that Richard was successful in this business. I mean, he's breaking down elements of the English language in terms of constructing how he wants it and trains his people to approach these calls. This is not an accident that he's been super successful. This is work. This is art. This is education. This is dedication. This is commitment. And it doesn't matter what it is. If I told you, hey, you could be super successful financially running a call center, would you believe me? Well, I got proof right here. I'm talking to a guy that's doing it. So
Yeah.
you can do it in anything, whatever you choose to do. It's important to do your absolute best at it. And that, to me, is the common thread across all of our guests. When I look at our successful guests, they are dedicated and committed to doing whatever it is that they do. And it's a huge range of things that they do. So I just think it's important to call that out. Who is the perfect customer or the ideal customer for your call center business?
Patience. Plus, it can't be shady or gray area. I'm not the fall guy like in the Maltese Falcon. It's
Mm,
not going to happen. Patience. Why? Because of expectations. Come on, man. You call me on a Friday afternoon, go, Richie, I need 12 people by Monday. Joe, seriously? Come on. Or they might expect us to do 15 sales an hour, but the average talk time's, 5 minutes. How's that going to work? 75 minutes. And so people have to, once again, slow down and calm down and see that it's an investment in a process. I like people that are plug and play that have this already, the metrics and everything in place. And we can either compare apples or enhance it through merit or through my own techniques, who knows? But then if people are starting from scratch, sometimes those are my favorite ones because you and I have been there. We've worked out of our garages and made that first sale. And so I almost get more excited over the pennies than I do the dollars because for some odd reason, I also see it as an iceberg. I always believe that it's going to be the one person that's testing you for the one seat that will call back and go, "You were the nicest guy. Here's 1,000."
mm.
I'm the hidden prince, and I've seen that before because I've been very fortunate to have clients entrust me with very large portions of their business. And I've done it through the years where little by little I've been able to match or exceed what they had at corporate. So it is a fair play. I tell you what, I don't want to take seats away. And I know people have certain feelings about outsourcing, but if I'm on a level playing field and everybody's got the same thing, if I'm hitting the bullseye more than other people, it's not for you, it's for the company. They need to still make money so they can stay in business. And
Yep.
if somebody in India and the Philippines can do better than me, so be it. But there are certain things in my environment, the bilingual with Spanish, the proxemics to the United States, the fact that an Anglo-Saxon moved here and is blending our culture with their culture, so it's that much better. That's why people choose me over others. But you know, this industry has an extremely large attrition rate. People burn out on it. And I think it's because they choose the wrong campaigns or they compromise their ethics, or unfortunately, they're in an environment where they just churn and burn and they have bad supervisors. I always believe that someone's job, it's an extremely delicate stage of their careers. No, you've had a teacher that made you or break or could break you, and certain bosses, and depending on your age and the sort of options and leverage you have, sometimes you got to take it. But then there's other times when you do have an opportunity to leave, you get out of there for your own dignity. But there is a certain stage. I will not, like for an example, in my industry, if people curse, there's a difference. If you're cursing at me, you get a warning. One more time, I'm killing the call. But if it's like steam out of your ears and you're like, F this and I'm F that, and I'm loving it. Why? Because when you're done, I go, Joe, yes, Richard, are you finished or do you want to drop 12 more F bombs? Oh man, did I really do that? What are we in a locker room? I go, do you want to keep going? And you're like, I think I'm okay. May we start again? We may start again. And those are my best clients because I extended sincere empathy. What is this, Wally Cleaver? Come on, people curse. And if it's a way for us to connect because they're venting and then they can get it out and we can reset again, that's when I get the referrals and I get the best clients. And so that's once again another stage of maturity. Hmm.
I love it. So, just so you know, the salty and salty ginger talk is because left to my own devices, I absolutely cuss like a sailor. Now, with that said, I have coached kids for 20 plus years. I've been in the corporate world, so I absolutely have different versions of myself and know when it's appropriate and when it's inappropriate. So to your
That's right.
point, locker rooms or whatever, but there's a difference to, and I think you did a great job of explaining it. There's a difference between cursing and cursing at somebody. You such and such, not acceptable. Like personal invectives, ad hominem attacks, those just aren't acceptable ways to communicate with people, and they're not
Yeah.
effective. The way to do it, you use the word empathy, and that is by far the most important word in my mind. I feel like I've been successful largely because I don't listen to what the way in which people communicate. I try to identify why they're saying or acting the way that they're speaking or acting. And
Hmm.
if I can understand that, then it gives me the direction that I need. Because if someone's intentions are good, but their
Hmm.
approach is poor, I'm going to give
Hmm.
them a pretty wide berth. If their approach is good, but their intentions are poor, I'm going to shut that down pretty quickly. And if you can get to the core of what it is they is driving them, I have found that to be very useful in my life, both personally and professionally. So,
That's right.
yeah, and I think you talked about that in training. You're trying to utilize human nature to connect with people. And when you connect with people, then now you've got a chance to have a conversation about what you called them for. And you're trying to get past the reef on the phone call, right?
Hmm. Strangers are friends you haven't met yet. I didn't know you a year ago. Now you're my main man. And
Right?
if you can every day at a time keep picking roses, you're gonna grow that bouquet. And it's just the kind of thing where life is such a gift. And if you can find ways to pay it forward and make people feel good and you feel good about yourself, that's just a wonderful, wonderful way to live your life. It really, and then you start seeing not problems go away, but they don't hurt as much anymore. It just doesn't matter anymore. I can actually walk in the rain and not worry about being wet.
I love it. So it's funny because I tell people a lot there. I've never, I shouldn't say never. I shouldn't use global statement like never. I rarely worry a lot what other people think about me because I know my intentions are good. If I screwed up a lot of stuff, you bet I've screwed up a lot of stuff. I've also gotten a lot of stuff right.
Yeah.
But 100 years from now, we're all going to be dead. Someone else is going to own all the stuff that you own, your house, your car, your things. No one's going to remember any of this. And I started using recently what I think is a really good example of that. So the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II, she sat on the throne for over 60 years. You would have been hard pressed to find anyone else in the world that was as recognizable as her for as long as her in a position that was as prominent as hers. She had
Hmm.
wealth, she had everything available to her in life. Without looking it up on the internet, can you tell me when she died? Or can you tell me three things that she did in her life? I've yet to talk to someone who can do both of those things. So, if no one can remember one of the most meaningful existences on the face of the earth, why are you so worried about being judged by people you don't know at all that you probably will never see again? Why would you not just worry about the circle that's around you and making their lives as good and your relationships as rich as possible? Because that's your best chance to pay it forward and to somehow live past your meaningful life, past your life on this earth. That's the way I think about it, at least. So focus on the relationships that are important and pour everything you've got into those relationships. And the thing about it is that circle expands exponentially after you start to do it. It's funny because you actually start to develop more and more of those types of relationships the more you take that approach. At least that's been my experience. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, but my first image in regards to Queen Elizabeth is gracing the cover of God Save the Queen Sex Pistols album. That was awesome. Sorry, that's what comes to my mind. But I love the fact that she was a dog lover.
Hmm.
I thought that was sweet. There was also a story of, I think, some guy that broke into the palace and got into her private chambers there, and she was calm and cool about it. I think offered him cigarettes or coffee or something, but the queen was cool. Queen was real cool about that. And I also like the photograph of her when she was in the military during World War II. She was a very pretty woman and a very strong figure. And I wish I knew specific dates, but I'm a person that I'm more on imagery. But I always felt that her outfits were perfect. and she always knew how to dress and just was just an extremely classy woman. So it's just kind of fun to watch somebody like that that was so elegant.
She was in such a high profile role, and it seemed like she always knew how to handle the situation she found herself in. I felt she was a pretty impressive lady myself. That was just,
A true queen, a real
yep.
queen.
She had a lot of,
Yeah.
she had a lot of gravitas,
Hmm.
to her. How did you and your wife meet?
Oof, that's an interesting story. When I got down here, she was working at my roommate's restaurant. She was the order girl. It was so cute. She would pick up the phone, do the orders, and then bring the food over into Office Centro, like all the industrial park. And so imagine, you're sitting there working, all of a sudden you see this really cute girl walking with a pack of hamburgers, and everyone stops making phone calls. And they're watching her, boom, 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 walking away. So what was my move, Joe? I would call up and I would speak Spanish and order my food, and I'd say, please send Gracie. And since I used to speak Spanish, I used to write poems and draw cartoons. And so I'd meet her and I used to court her the old fashioned way, like a goofball, you know? But whatever it did, it worked. But here's the best part. My roommate says, yo, man, there's 1,000 girls down here. Don't mess with Grace. So you know what that means? We're messing with Grace. And so it was kind of like a cat and mouse game. When they were over there, we were over here. And so, I'm 27 at the time. What, I got to call my mom? I mean, what's going on here? But the fun part about it was such a innocent relationship. It wasn't like a bar hookup, or it wasn't one of those walk of shames the following day. This was an extremely conservative woman that still lived with her family. And so I had to prove myself from the other 1,000 gringos that thought this was just, a fun time. This was serious. This was long term if you decided to make that sort of commitment. And I knew at that time I had to make a choice. I could continue to be footloose and fancy free like Mike Damone from Fast Times at Richmond High, or I can decide to marry a princess, a real Central American exotic princess. And so I decided to follow my heart, and here we are today. I didn't expect that either, but I tell you what, when you're in Central America and Costa Rica and you meet a beautiful exotic woman, I would suggest marrying her. Why not? Bring her back home. And so, yeah, it's two worlds that were so different, but the same. What do I mean? Because my Pac-Man, my ice hockey, my Flyers, and how I grew up in Philadelphia, that meant nothing here. And so I needed to start again. And so a lot of it was natural. Like, you want to know where our first date was? She took me to a bougainvillea where we went to this beautiful hotel that had this incredible tropical garden. So before dinner, when the sun was coming down at twilight, just like out of the movies, we're strolling arm in arm through this thing. And I'm new to this country. So every second she's like, I want you to look at this plant, look at this thing here, it's edible, look at this flower here, it's medicinal. And she's just showing me all of this stuff. And I go, first, I say to myself, you're an idiot, Richard. You totally didn't prepare for this. And second, I'm in awe. I have never been swept away by such incredible knowledge where it's not like going to the mall and knowing the new Louis Vuitton bag or a certain designer out of Milan. This was something that she's just going like an encyclopedia left and right about her beautiful country and what it is and what to do. And I said, I need to marry this girl. I go, I would like to incorporate that in my life, that sort of mindset and that sort of living that was so natural to the world. Where she even said, when we, it's kind of cool too. She goes, take off your shoes. I'm like, take off my shoes. She goes, yeah, become more grounded too with the earth while we're walking in these gardens. And I'm like, oh my God, yes. So that my good friend is how it all began.
I love it. That's outstanding. So along those same lines, I was thinking about this earlier, and I meant to ask you when you brought it up, but it just popped back into my head. You talked about working out a lot, and
Yeah.
I don't think it's an accident that you have such a good outlook on life and you work out a lot. Talk a little bit about how the physical work from a workout helps your mental outlook and mental approach on life.
Let me show the gun. Yeah, for
Sun's out, guns out, baby.
52 years old, I can hold my own. Forget motivation. That's structure and discipline. That's Richard time. That's time for me to reset. And it's not about how much I can lift. It's about proper form. It's respect to those weights so I don't hurt myself. I've been working out since I was 17. I told you Ed's gym back in the day, that thing never stopped. And what has that done? Well, I'm hoping that in my later years that I've prepared my body so I can get out of bed and I can live where I have a strong back, strong legs, strong arms, where I can enjoy my life. And I'm not bedridden or in a wheelchair. And so that's number one. But I also am doing something differently now than I did in my younger years. I'm taking creatine and protein powders. And I wish I had done this back in the day. I would have been super freaking ripped. And but I like how I feel. I like how it helps keep me regular, helps my stomach. Okay. Um, I see it's good for skin and just for everything. For some odd reason, it kind of makes your whole body complete. And a lot of people don't want to do it, but I think after a period of time, your body starts to need it. And I love going to the gym with all the equipment, but damn, man, I don't want to wait in line and I don't want to drive a half an hour each way. And I did for years. So I'm fortunate now where I have my game room where I have all my arcade machines play, but I also have a gym. So I got the universal, the flat bench, a couple machines and stuff. So I have the luxury of getting out of bed at 5:30, getting my coffee, walking right into my bodega. No one's around. I can blast my music, listen to the news. I can do whatever I want. And that has saved me an enormous amount. That could possibly save me 10 hours a week just in driving time. It can also tack in another 5 hours. That's 15 hours a week of waiting in between sets, driving time, you name it. I don't need that nonsense. So I'll sacrifice a Smith machine or other sorts of machines at Gold's Gym in order just to use pure free weights, a little bit of a universal with some pulleys and just try to get the majority of a workout in just for my own peace of mind. Because if not, I'm not going to go and I don't want to do that. And so, even if you don't have the luxury of weights in your home, find ways to either stretch or just get outside and walk. Why? Because at least it's a start. And you can still make business calls when you're walking. You can still catch up on work if you're outside stretching or you're doing push-ups or you're doing things that don't need equipment or money. I don't want to sound like I'm preachy, but I tell you what, say what you want. I size up. And when you go to the shore or if you're on vacation, I'm not the biggest guy. I'm only 5'9". I weigh a good solid 171. It's not the point. The point being is you kind of see how people treat themselves. And then how about this? If they have a partner, how they're treating their partner. You want to look good for your partner. You don't want to look like a schlep and a slob. You want to look good. My wife's beautiful. She's aging gracefully. And so I don't know, when I see my friends from high school, the ones that could bench 315 and would kick some ass on the football field, a lot of these guys are severely out of shape. Okay. And it's not for me to say, but in my mind, because I hold them at such high esteem, I get disappointed because I always believe the Abington, the Philly, come on, man, we're long-term players here. Maybe it's just me. Well, sometimes, Joe, that's just the way it goes. Sometimes you need to walk alone because these other people might be weights that are holding you back. And so the gym thing, once again, it's not to be at that fancy spa or to hang around the water cooler 20 minutes in between sets. No, man. I go there to work out old school like I used to. I want to get in and out. And but I would suggest that for your audience, there's nothing better if you can do it. But I tell you what, cheat a little bit. Take that protein and that creatine because you'll feel stronger, you'll recover faster, it'll make you feel better. It will give you the drive to get into that gym. And you'll feel better when you work out. And so anyway, thanks for letting me show the gun. Yeah. Rock on.
Hey, I love it. I think it's going to increase viewership by at least 10%, just that clip.
You're so funny.
What's your go-to music for your workout?
Mm, God, well, I told you my favorite band's In Excess, but it's got to be something that hits hard. But you want to hear something I've been listening to recently? You're not going to believe this. Do you remember freestyle music from the 80s?
That does not ring a bell to me.
Like they had that in the dance clubs, like Stevie B and the Cover Girls and
Oh,
stuff like
sure.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like
Yep.
the Miami freestyle. There's like,
Yep.
it's automatic. Don't stop the rock. I mean, so I kind of listen to my early 80s club music that kind of gets me up and going and gets me ready to go. I do not know why, but it just reminds me of doing like, backspins and breakdancing and stuff.
It's
Might as
kind of
well
high
listen to
energy. It kind of makes sense when you think about it that way. I mean, it's high energy music for sure.
it's consistent rhythm because if I'm going to songs that give you, the certain riffs or the other things, that's fine. It just gives you certain periods of it. But if it's long dance stuff, that's the rhythm for me in between sets. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, see, it's funny. I used to when I was still playing baseball, I was a pitcher, and so we did a lot of core and legs. And
Yeah.
so I've never been I actually like rock and heavy metal and those kind of things, but I don't like them for workout music because I feel
Hmm.
like when I'm and I don't work out the way I used to, which was functional. I would squat, I would do reps with the offensive linemen on our football team because I took it real serious and I worked really hard. I'm nowhere near anywhere near that these days, and I don't do that heavy of weights. I'm 53, and I know we talked about that when we first connected. But I like something that's more upbeat that kind of releases some endorphins and kind of provides me energy to get through the tough stuff. That's the stuff I
Hmm.
try to listen to.
There you go. Anything just to give you that or you want to know something? I'll tell you something I listened to. Do you remember the movie Vision Quest
I love
from the
Vision
80s?
Quest. Loud and
What?
Swain.
Yeah,
Shoot.
yeah, and shoot, yeah, of course. Oh man, if I listen to that album, forget about it. I mean, Lunatic Fringe, right? And
Yep.
so yeah. I mean, that's if you want it. Yeah, that hits me hard. If your audience has not seen Vision Quest, that is the movie to watch.
That is an
Oh
outstanding
yeah,
movie. I've 100% endorsed that. 100% endorse it.
yeah.
It's got a young no, what's Matthew Modine.
Matthew
I was going to say
Modine.
Matthew McConaughey. It's Matthew Modine.
Hmm.
And the guy that played Jake from 16 Candles makes an appearance with
That's
a
right.
mohawk.
Yeah. It's a great movie. Great movie. Great movie. Great movie. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great flick. So, what are if is there something that we have not talked about or a question that I have not asked you yet that you want to share while you're here with the audience? It's kind of an open floor to discuss any and all topics that you choose.
Let me share a little bit about beautiful Costa Rica. This is not a geography class, but let's talk for a second. We're
Hmm.
north of Panama, south of Nicaragua. Costa Rica is the only democratic society in Central America. They have no standing army, Joe, so they put all their money back into education. They have a 95% literacy rate. They claim they have the most neutral of English accents in Central America. And companies such as Amazon, HP, Intel, Oracle, they're here. And so that was one of the main reasons why I chose this place. If it's the kind of area where that was unsafe or there wasn't opportunities, it wouldn't have made sense. But for some crazy reason, all the stars were aligned here. And we're pretty close. We're on Mountain Time Zone, just a couple hour flight to Miami. But there's a lot of expats that are here. So a lot of people are attuned to the North American market. They they understand American football and what the shore means. And so it's not like I was going into China or some place where I couldn't speak the language and I was way off. I mean, this is the kind of thing, as I mentioned, I understood the language and the culture was somewhat similar. And plus, the weather's great. I mean, you're living with tropical rainforests here. We're known for ecotourism. Check this out. We're known for some of the best surfing in the world. And also, we have those blue zones in Nicoya and Guanacaste where people are the happiest. And there's a place down here you would love. It's called Tabacón. It's this beautiful hot springs resort right by Arenal volcano, right up there. And a lot of people like to visit that. Zip lining people do. There's whitewater rafting people are into. And so, yes, you can go to the beach and lounge, but it's incredible the sort of adventures you can go on. And don't call me goofy, but I like going to butterfly farms too. That's wicked cool because they have these enclosed areas and you're walking out there, you just put your arms out, you feel like Cinderella or Snow White. And but you're seeing some of the most beautiful creatures. These butterflies are exotic. And what it does is you're living in a painting and the air is so fresh. And you do realize you're in a place that is exceptionally special. And so when people come here, there's an expression called Pura Vida, and it means pure life. And so people get tattoos by the shirts and the hats. But if they're willing to incorporate that mindset and actually live a Pura Vida lifestyle, that's great. I needed to come here, jump in the deep end, and be in it. Sometimes people come here for a week and take that for the rest of their lives. Me, it's like the all you can eat buffet. I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to keep going for those crab legs. And so, um, Joe, I couldn't get enough, man. This place just made me feel like I was on top of the world, and it was every day was a Saturday. So why would you want to stop that? So I had to make a couple selfish decisions and think about myself. And that's why I made a life here, my friend.
Yeah, I just don't know that I'd consider that selfish. Like it feels like such an, at least the way you've described it and your reaction to it, it feels like it's the right fit for you. That doesn't feel selfish. It just feels natural to me. So,
Well, let me share a lot of family guilt. I'm
mm,
not the only one. Come on, Joe. All of us have been under pressure for certain traditions, culture, and expectations. I, once again, was supposed to go to Ivy League and go into family business. And was it a disappointment? In some aspects, yes. And it scared the death out of my family because they couldn't give advice and give hugs and put a nice 20 in my back pocket and wish me well. No, this was the kind of thing where it was just like a Hans Christian Andersen. I mean, you are literally writing your own destiny. And so it scared them because a lot of parents like to be protective and love you. And when you're so far away, they miss you. And there are times that you miss out on certain events. And so you have to decide if you want to make those sort of sacrifices. And I knew weighing every day, every month, and every year what the long-term options were. This is not a quick flip. This was something where I was putting roots in, and I and I had to stand behind it, no matter how hard the storm was. Do you remember Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump? My favorite part of that movie was when he was on top of the ship.
on the mast.
Remember on
Yep.
the mast and the I love that moment. And I really connected with that because there's a certain point where A, people aren't afraid to die and they're shedding skin and they're getting raw and they're making a serious, serious life decision. And they're testing their faith and they're testing the gods and the stars. And so I didn't say that my decision and moment was that extreme, but I think all of us in our mind have been in that situation where it does feel like we're on the seas and we could sink at any time and we could die
Yep.
if we don't live. And that's one of the scariest things that could keep you up at life, that you would waste a life. And so That's my thought in regards to that. I really wanted to once again not sacrifice my life, but give my life to this so I could almost, as they say, walk into the light. I wanted to shine, and the only way for me to shine was to make it as true as I possibly could for myself. Man, Joe, does that make any sort of sense?
It makes all sorts of sense to me. Absolutely.
Thank you,
But
brother.
well, so here's the thing for listeners. I think it's important to understand. So if you hear what Richard just shared, there was a tremendous amount of pressure or expectation from people who were very important to him to live a different life than the one that he's living right now. And it takes some serious fortitude to strike out on your own and take advantage of opportunities and put yourself in situations where you might not be comfortable all the time, or at least not at the start. And look at the life he's been able to build for himself because he was willing to face the unknown, to press forward, to put himself in uncomfortable situations, to learn new things, to meet new people, to not conform to expectations that did not feel right to him,
Mm,
and build a wonderful life with a wonderful person,
mm.
even though it's in a country that is not the one he was born in. So what? Who cares? Like, what a great situation he's created for himself and the people around him because he wasn't afraid. Maybe let's say different. Even if he was afraid, he did it anyways and gave it a shot, right? Because that's a
Joe, you're the
better
man.
way. That's a better way to think about it because you can only be brave when you're afraid. Like you can't be brave if you're not afraid. It just doesn't work. The only time you can be brave is when you're afraid to take the hard swallow, to set your feet, and to move forward. Like that's the way to do it. So, no, I think you said that. I think you said that beautifully, and it makes perfect sense to me. And I think just in your conversation and the way you speak, the way you interact with people, and the gratitude that kind of oozes from you, I think it's a reflection of that. And I think it's awesome. I think it's great for our audience to see, you know? So really appreciate you being willing to share all that with us.
Thank you, my man. And trust me, I think from time to time, what if I'd chosen that other adventure or had everything teed up for me and set up for me? It could have been super comfy life, starting on third base.
Right.
No, my man, I wanted my own. I really did want my own adventure. And so that's why you see a smile, a satisfied man. And I believe that whatever happens in these next stages of life is only going to come natural because I want it to. You know, I'm not going to force any more fits.
I love it. And yeah, like who knows, right? We've both lived enough life to know we can have our own inclinations, we can have our own expectations, but you don't know what's around the next corner. You don't know what the next phone call brings. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And so, like you talked about a little earlier, wasting a life is not the approach. You've got to live. You've got to take your shots. You've got to give it a try. Whatever happens, you can deal with it. But what you don't want to do is years, decades down the road, say, what if? What if I had taken that shot? What if I had talked to that pretty girl at the restaurant? What if, right? That's not the way to do it.
But I also believe, as I mentioned, dedicated practice. If you practice speaking to a girl 1,000 times, you should be ready. It's like a Rube Goldberg experiment, those non-electrical machines. It takes you 99 times to get it done right. Remember the game Mousetrap? But I was just banking on what I knew most. The Spanish I knew was going to take me somewhere. So I think everybody needs to have something special about them that at least they can then find the certain group or the certain environment that's right for them. And that's why it's always fun, especially now when you see these art classes. Doesn't mean you need to be a sculptor or a painter, choose your class. And those are the people that like to paint too. And then the next thing you know, everyone's best friends, like me with my hockey buddies. And so water seeks its own level. I think the worst thing is to go to an environment where you are pretending that you like
Ooh,
the food and the drink and the people. And it's a shame because everyone's wearing masks they're all pretending that they like the food when they know it sucks. You know what's so funny down here? And I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm at so many parties where they'll order like some cake, and it's not like a cookie puss from, Carvel, where it's a great ice cream cake. It's usually some crappy ass cake down here with a little bit of ice cream. They cut big pieces, and I take them. I'm like, ugh. And I was like, oh, que rico. Okay, delicioso. And I'm saying to myself, shit, tastes like cardboard. And they're all being so nice to Doña Carmen. Oh, riquísimo. Where did you buy it? And I'm saying to my wife, are they being absolutely serious? I go, this is the most disgusting cake I've ever seen in my entire life. And so I always laugh at things like that, unless I got bad taste. I did mention Cookie Puss Carvel. Everyone loves that. But no, but I tell you, man, it's kind of funny when people are just being polite. But man, I can't believe she ate the whole piece. I mean, ew. But things are funny. We're too old to pretend. I'd rather like
Exactly
people
right.
that like me. Yeah, we're too old for this night. It's a young man's game, Joe.
I couldn't agree more. It's funny because I was kind of born that way. I was wired so that I've never, again, not a global statement, shouldn't use it. I rarely worry what other people think about me. I rarely do. And even as a kid, I rarely did that. I'm human. Like I get it. I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not impervious to those things. But for example, I've never been drunk in my life. I've never touched an illegal drug in my life. And that's not good or bad. It just is. It's a statement of fact. That never appealed to me. Like nothing about it ever appealed to me personally. And more power to you if it does appeal to you. Zero issues from me, not a judgmental thing at all. But I was in situations all the time where I was 12 years old and I was offered heroin from one of my friend's older brothers.
Oh my God.
And I would just always say, no, thanks, not my thing. And I never got pushback for it. Literally never. I got, oh, you pansy. Oh, you must be a chicken. Oh, just try it. Like never once did that happen to me in repeated situations where I was offered those kinds of things. So it's okay to just be who you are. And the right people will wind up around you if you're genuine. And if you're not, like Richard talked about, you're going to wind up eating cardboard cake and acting like it's good. And nobody wants that.
Not at all. And they cut me the big piece because I'm the gringo. I don't want to be the big piece. Stop being so nice to me.
Oh my gosh. Good stuff. Well, Richard, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think you said so many good things on here, and I think our listeners will get so much out of it. Love you sharing your story. Love you being honest about some of the challenges you had to overcome and or fears you had to overcome to take your
Yeah.
shots, as well as just kind of the very obvious joy and gratitude that you have from what you've been able to accomplish in your life, from taking consistent action, from taking your chances, from continuing to press forward. And, just I love having you in my column as a friend now. And this is one of the great things about doing the podcast is I get to meet and befriend people like you, and it makes me a better person to have people like that around me. So thanks so much for sharing it with our audience.
Right back at you, buddy. I had a great time today. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Joe.
If you make it to Cleveland, you've got a friend here and you look me up. And same thing if I come down to Costa Rica, which very well could happen, I might add. I know I've got a tour guide and someone who can at least tell me which cake to avoid, if nothing else.
Good call. Very good call. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Thanks for the time, Richard. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Have a good night. All right, guys. So, wow, like we said before we started, Richard is such an interesting guy. So, expectations from the family, which were steeped in Ivy League tradition. He kind of said, I'm going to go my own way. I don't think that's the right path for me. Love of the Spanish language took him through college, took a job in Costa Rica, was supposed to be a 60-day assignment. He's been there for decades now, built a super successful business from all he learned working in call centers, been married to his wife for several decades, loves music, loves pinball machines, loves the experiences that he's been able to have in life. And man, there's just so much to learn from that conversation about taking your shots, about not conforming to what other people expect you to conform to and living the life that you want to live. So, super powerful stuff. We're so appreciative that Richard was willing to take a couple hours with us and come on the podcast and talk to us about it. So, outstanding stuff. We will leave in the show notes Richard's company information if you're interested, and you can get in touch with him. You may need a call center. You may have products or services that he could help you move. And if that's the case, we want to make sure that you can get in touch with him. So we'll put that in the show notes. And also, James puts it up right over here every day. Don't forget to head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are available there. We've got links to all our social media accounts available on the website. And we publish a newsletter every weekday that you can subscribe to on our website. Also, please, please, please like, comment, share, subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. Super helpful for us. Really appreciate you checking out the channel. Thanks again to Richard for taking so much time with us and sharing his life and his awesome outlook on things. A lot to learn there. So appreciate you guys checking out the episode, and we will see you on the next one.